My name is Jody Hall, and I'd like to start this presentation off by sharing an anecdote that happened within the past month or so. I was out. My mother was very excited to. I was visiting her recently, and she was very excited to take me and one of my good friends out to lunch. Unfortunately, she ended up having to dip early, so she left us her credit card and told us the budget, of course. And when the bill came around, I remember I got very excited because I said to my friend, "Oh my gosh, it's not my money. I can tip as much as I want to," and that was great for me, and so I did. I left a very generous tip, and we were well within the budget, so it was no worries. But and my friend kind of laughed at me and pointed out that most people might not be excited about the fact that they could tip the wait staff as much as they wanted to. They'd probably be excited about, I can buy whatever I want. I can get dessert. When someone gives you their credit card, that's generally what you're excited about, is what you can buy for yourself, not getting excited about how much you can feasibly tip your wait staff, which is what I was excited about. And so she was kind of laughing at me about that, but it was nice to have her point that out about me, because it led me to realizations about myself and what's important to me, and it's also very relevant to my theme for this midterm project. I am currently at a time in my life where I have more stability than I previously had, and I have a job right now. In this moment, I'm not paying rent, which means that I actually have a little bit of expendable income. And I get cash tips on the weekend. I work at a restaurant. And in this moment, very temporarily, but for this time, I do actually have financial stability and comfort and a little bit of expendable income. And with this realization about myself and, my values, I've also sort of realized, right now, I can use this resource that I have temporarily to help other people who might not have that resource. And that leads me to the overarching theme for this project. That is the overarching theme for this project is, I am going to put a conscious effort into using my temporary situation of expendable cash flow to be more giving and to help others who might need it and not have the same luxuries that I have right now. Not a whole lot. I mean, when I say expendable income, I mean like $10, $20 a week, if that. It's not hundreds, but it's something, and it's more than I've had in the past. And it could mean so much to someone else. And I have a few recent examples of this. Most notably, I've started giving spare change and, buying little things for people who, folks on the street who are asking for spare change or who I just feel like might need it. Recently, I also was at a student event, and there were some students who didn't have any cash on them, and I had just come from work, and I had, some dollar bills in my pocket, so I bought my parking ticket, or parking permit, and I bought theirs as well, and they were very grateful, and that felt really great. I buy my friends lunch if I can, I buy them boba if I can, if they need it, and yeah, I actually, at work as well, if we have a mistake order, like a DoorDash order that got messed up or something, I will give them to local homeless people. However, unfortunately, I have been told not to do that at this point, which I will touch on more on that later, just because this is an example of a theme from this class, that being the concept of dual perspective, because this conversation with the owner, the owner's perspective is he doesn't want the local homeless folks to learn that our restaurant is a source of free food and to, continue coming in. It's sort of hit or miss. Sometimes people are a little bit less nice and they can be disruptive to the restaurant environment, and that's not good for business, obviously. So I understand his perspective, but I also understand my perspective, because, as I'll touch on in a moment, I've been hungry. I know what it's like to be hungry, and I want to help these people. I mean, it's hard to see people suffering, and especially when I know that I have access to free food at my restaurant, it's very hard not to use that resource. So that's a little moment of dual perspective where I've sort of have to hear my boss out while also understanding my own ethics and my own morals. So it's important to acknowledge that, especially for this project. But that leads me to the inspiration for this theme, is even though I have resources right now, I'm in a good place right now, but I have not always been. I was not raised affluent. That's being a bit generous. My upbringing was, we were pretty stressed financially most of my childhood, and especially when I first entered early adulthood, I have been very, very hungry and very, very broke. I know what it is like to very literally not have enough money to feed yourself. Thankfully that was a very short period of my life, but I know what it's like. And, when I see someone on the street who comes in and asks for if we have anything to spare, I've been that person before, and I know how it feels, and I've experienced that desperation. So the fact that I actually can help, I mean, in those moments when I was in that phase of my life, there were some people who were very generous and helped me, and there were also moments where I really wished someone could help me, and no one did, and I had to figure it out myself. And so the fact that I can be the person who steps up for someone else means a lot to me, and I am going to do that. I have resolved that to myself that I'm going to do that. So I'm going to focus in on one particular instance of my primary act of kindness for this presentation is going to be a recent event that happened within the past week or two. I had a woman come in and ask if we had any food to spare or anything that I could do for her, and this was after the owner had told me that I was not allowed to do that anymore, unfortunately. So I explained that to her. I was like, I'm really sorry, I'm not able to give out free food anymore. I said I've gotten in trouble for it before, and I can't, it's not a risk I can take anymore. But if you need, I can get you a glass of water, a to-go cup of warm water. We've got lemons over there if that would help. I'm really sorry, I wish I could do more. And I could tell that she really needed it. She was very kind to me, but I could tell that she was hungry. And so I took a beat, and while she got her water together, and I decided, I have some money. I have at least $6 in cash in my pocket right now from my tips from yesterday. And I said to her, you know what, I have some cash on me. Would you like to have some potatoes? That's all I can do right now, unfortunately. But I can treat you. And so I did, and she was very, very grateful. I definitely had a positive reaction from her. I hope I got the reaction I did because she felt seen and understood and not judged, which, I am making the assumption that she was homeless. If she wasn't homeless, she was at least very poor. So she probably deals with a lot of judgment, so I hope that from me, she at least got understanding and non-judgment. I suspect she was also very grateful just because she was hungry, and I gave her something warm to eat and something warm to drink and to hold the warm water. And it made me feel warm as well. I mean, it's a really wonderful feeling to do these things, and that's why I do them. It helps other people, and it's a good feeling. So that was wonderful. To call back to the themes of this class, I'd like to analyze this interaction a little bit more. So from the beginning, I used my cognitive schemata and or cognitive complexity to deduce from her nonverbal communication and the context of how she looked, of the situation, what she was saying, that she was homeless or at least very poor, and that she was cold and hungry. It was a cold night. Clearly, especially if she's homeless, she's going to be cold, of course, because she's outside, and because of her body language and behavior and requests, I could tell that she was hungry. And those cognitive schemata come from my own personal experience, both with living and working in the city and knowing what homeless people or, impoverished people tend to look like. It also comes from my own personal experience I've never been homeless, I will say that, but I have been hungry, and I know what that looks like and what that feels like and what that looks like on a person, what kind of body language is going to come with that. So I also could have used my schemata to know that she was cold, again, based on context, and to know what would help, that being, warm water. That's because that's what I do for myself when I'm cold, which is I would count that as cognitive schemata because it comes from my prior life experiences and information that's already in my mind. I also use dual perspective a little bit here because, much like I did with the owner at my restaurant, I had dual perspective with her as well because I could very much see things from her point of view. I understood where she was coming from, but I also understood my point of view. In the beginning, I had to say no because, I'm at risk here too. I don't want to get in trouble with my boss. So I had that dual perspective of knowing where I stood and knowing what I was able to do and not able to do, but also hearing her out and hearing where she was coming from and being able to eventually make my own choice based off of that without jeopardizing my situation, but also being able to help her. So that's a good example of dual perspective. So back to my original theme of overall, as a general rule, using the resources I have right now, making the choice to do that. I would say that in the future, as part of this choice that I've made for myself, one of the main things I want to do is start more consciously using mindful listening to be more aware of moments that I can snatch to practice my theme of using my resources for kindness. If you listen well, you are sure to find opportunity you might have otherwise overlooked. And for me, as I've learned in this class very recently, remembering is a huge part of mindful listening, and that's definitely something that I need to practice more. And I think if I practice that more, if I listen more mindfully, and if I practice remembering things, I'm going to find a lot more opportunity to use these resources and to practice kindness in a more conscious way. Another part of our class content that is relevant to this is the concept of an identity script. I am a generous and caring person. I want this to be an identity script for myself, and honestly, I think it might already be a script that I live by, but now I want it to be more conscious. I want to, consciously make the choice to have this be an identity script, because honestly, historically, those are important to me as a person. Those already have been part of my identity, but I want that to continue being the case on a conscious level. So in conclusion, I'd say my bigger takeaways from this assignment, and how kindness is relevant to human communication. They might not be themes that you would connect immediately, but I think, acts of kindness make us more aware of others, and they forge connection where there might not have otherwise been connection. And they also, practicing kindness allows us to practice our skills of communication, of listening, of understanding, of being compassionate, of engaging in dual perspective, which is huge. I know that's something that I need to practice more. Sometimes I get stuck in my own head, and by engaging in dual perspective, I'm so much more open, and that opens the door for more opportunities for kindness. And practicing the skills of communication for the sake of doing good is a huge benefit to practicing kindness. It's good to be looking out for one each other. It's good to be listening and to be practicing understanding of each other and compassion. So I think that's my biggest takeaway from this assignment, and from my theme of practicing kindness on a daily basis, I think, is compassion and understanding. So, thank you.